When you're working with Scratch, the first thing that you need to know is you can create accounts. When you sign in, I'm signing in as an account that was allowed as a teacher account. You can create individual Scratch accounts and you can create teacher accounts. And the benefit of creating a teacher account is that you're able to create classes with students in them, and you can create student IDs. That way they don't have to worry about creating an ID for themselves or you having to worry about people seeing their things online. So what I'd like you to do is either online or offline, get Scratch started. And when you start Scratch offline, you're going to end up with a program screen that looks like this. If you start Scratch online, and let me go over here to Scratch, you're going to need to click on the drop down and you can go to My Stuff. And when you get to My Stuff, you can say, I want to create a new project. And once you do that, you may need to allow Flash, but it will give you a screen that's very, very similar to what's online. We're going to take a look at how the screen is laid out. When you're working with students, the top portion of the screen here, the top left, is your canvas and your stage for your characters. Whether you're just doing pure programming or you're working with storytelling, this becomes the important area that your story or your program is going to run in. Beneath that, we have our area here, which is our sprites area. Sprites are the characters that run within Scratch, and what they call the stage and different backdrops. In the middle of the screen, we have our scripting area, and the scripting area has 3 tabs, one for scripts, one for something called costumes, and one for something called sounds. And finally, to the right-hand side, you have the area that you drag your programming blocks in. You should have gotten a downloaded paper that looks something like this. And if you didn't, it's okay. But what it's doing is it's giving you a template for your students to tell a story. So when you tell a story, you want to think about who are the characters in the story, what's the setting for the story, what problem happens within the story, and what the solution's going to be. So in my story that we're going to do as a little example, we're going to have 2 characters, a cat and a wizard. And the settings are going to be an urban street and also a kitchen. The problem is that our cat wants to go into a house to visit a friend, and he's going to knock on a door because there's a little girl who's going to live in one of the houses. And then the solution is the wizard magically opens the correct door. So what I'd like you to do for starters is I'd like you to use the cat sprite, and that's what comes up automatically as soon as you're working with Scratch. When you get that sprite, your students can drag it around on the screen, and if you drag your cat on the screen to the lower right hand side, you're going to see a little X and a Y. So all of Scratch works on a coordinate plane, just like math. So if you drag your cat more or less to the center, you're going to see that those numbers come very close to 0, 0. Now, what I want to do is I want to start teaching the cat some tricks. So if you click in the Scripts tab, the first block that's always great to start with students is the Move block. So you can hold your mouse down on Move and drag it onto that programming area. And it's a lot like the hour of code. So if your students have done that, it's going to feel very comfortable. And if you just put your arrow hovering on top of that code and you double click, you'll see the cat's going to kind of move 10 little pixels forward each time. And you can change that very easily just by clicking in the white spot and changing the 10 to a 50, let's say. And now when you double click, he's going to move much faster and much farther. We also want to be able to bring other characters into our story. And on the line above that cat sprite, it says New Sprite. We have 4 choices. We can choose a sprite from the library, create our own, which we'll do in a little bit, upload a sprite. So if you have a sprite file, you can upload that. And you could also create a sprite from a webcam. And You don't even have to tell kids about that. They figure that out instantly pretty much. And it's up to you if you want to tell them that's not an option if you have webcams or if you want to allow that. But let's click on the choose a new sprite from library, and you'll see that the sprite library is broken down into a bunch of categories, and you're going to choose the people category and then drag down until you come to the sprite that's labeled wizard, and you give him a click and you can say okay, and that sprite's going to come into the screen for you. Now what makes a sprite unique is that they can have costumes. So if you click on the cat sprite, and then you have to, and kids do this all the time, they want to click on the sprite up here in this little stage in the canvas. They always have to click on the sprite down below in that sprite area. So click on the cat sprite and then choose the costumes tab. And what you'll see is that Sprite lets you get into a painting editor immediately for these characters. So I'd like you to, you're on costume 1 for the cat. Just choose any other color that you'd like. So I'm going to choose this little magenta, and you can choose the paint bucket and just colorize the cat to be a different color. And we are going to end up using both costumes in a little bit. So after you colorize the first costume, go to the second costume and use your paint bucket and color that in. So, you know, the students, of course, they really enjoy colorizing these characters and making them their own. After you get your cat colorized, click on the wizard and choose a different color for his costume as well with the paint bucket. So you should have 2 different colored characters at this point. Our story, we've now built our characters. We have our cat, we have our wizard, and eventually we're going to make a drawing of a little girl, but we'll save that until we get some of this more programmed. To the left of your sprites is your stage, and right now the stage is a blank piece of paper. Just like your sprites, they have built-in backgrounds. So what I'd like you to do is choose the little icon that looks like a file icon. It says choose backdrop from library. And our first backdrop is going to be an outdoor scene. So if you click on outdoors and then in alphabetic order, just look for the one that says urban 1 and choose OK. And that's going to give you a little street scene for your characters. We looked pretty basically at how your sprite can walk. Choose your cat sprite again and go back to scripts. And with your characters, it would be really kind of pointless if you had to double click on the programming blocks each time to make the move. So the next thing that you want to do is you can interest your students in being able to control things. So I want you to drag that on and then attach the blue block to it. Again, it's a lot like code.org. And since this is our cat, I want it so that when the letter C is pressed, the cat's going to move 50 steps. And then I'd like you to try the same thing on your own for getting the wizard to walk, let's say 10 steps. So maybe you want to choose W for wizard in this case. And under motions, you want him to walk 10 steps, move 10 steps. And once you attach those blocks together, you should be able to press the W and the C, and they're going to go at their own speeds the way that you set them. Drag your wizard and your cat back again. And again, you can try that W and C to go along, the move and the for the cat and the wizard. If you ever have yourself or a student who has a programming command here in this area and you don't need it anymore, you can drag it right back to the scripts area, and it doesn't have to be even on top of the command where it belongs. Just drag it on and drag it off. Now, another thing that could be helpful, sometimes the cat may get dragged too far off the screen, and it's really hard to get them back. Like right here, I've pretty much dragged it where I can almost not touch it. Sometimes kids will do that as well. So another command that's helpful under motion, if you click on motion and just give this a try, the motion has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The sixth block down, it says go to X and Y. So if a student ever loses a character, have them drag that one onto the programming area and change the numbers to 0, 0. And 0, 0 is the middle of the screen, so when you double click it, the cat will come back to you. Now, in our story, what we want to have happen is we want the cat to go to the door, see if his friend's there, go to the next door, see if his friend's there. The problem is our cat wants to find the house where the little girl lives. Our solution is that the wizard's going to come and magically open the door. So now we want to start thinking about, how do we want to set the story up to go? You know, is there something more that we can do than just hitting that letter C and that letter W to make the characters move around? And there's another event called when the green flag is clicked. So I'd like you to go to the cat and into that programming area, drag a when the green arrow is clicked. Now at the beginning, if I was doing this with the older kids, I might have them pay more attention to these coordinates on the screen. But if you're going to start with a third grader, that can be a little bit complicated. So one of the nicest things you could do is teach any student that when you have a sprite, if you first drag him where you want him to be, when you go to those motion blocks, it fills in that exact X and Y position right into those blocks. So what I'd like you to do is drag your cat somewhere to the street corner, drag your wizard kind of hovering up in the air by the top of the street sign. And for the cat, when the green arrows clicked, the first thing that we want is the cat to go where we want him at the beginning of the story. So I dragged my cat where I want him to go, and when the green arrows clicked, I'm going to use that go to X, Y position. So as soon as the green arrows clicked, if I drag my cat up here on top of the door and click the green arrow, he immediately hops back here. So I'd like you to set the cat and the wizard that when the green arrows clicked, they're going to go to their starting positions. So you need that event command when green arrows clicked and the motion command. First drag your character where you want him to be, and then drag that go to block on there. So now you should be able to drag the cat and the wizard anywhere and click the green block, and he's going to hop back. Now I want my cat and my wizard to be able to say things and think things. And that's where the looks command comes in handy. So what I'd like you to do for the cat, I'd like in his programming block for the green arrow, after he moves to the right spot, I want him to say hello for 2 seconds. For the wizard, when his green block is clicked, I want him to think for 2 seconds. So do that and then click your green arrow. And what I'd like you to do, either verbally or in the text box, what's the obvious difference between the think and the say?
Well, the call outs are different, no?
Yep, that's exactly it. So there's really no difference between think and say, except for the fact that it gives you the ability to let the student show a person, is the cat saying something out loud, or is the wizard thinking something in his head? So there's no difference to how they operate. It's just the call out looks different. So is it a thinking bubble or is it a saying bubble? The story goes that the cat wants to come over to the doors and see if that's the door where his friend lives. So the cat starts off by saying hello. He's ready to find his friend. The wizard's saying, I wonder what's going on. Take a look at the motion blocks again under scripts. Another way that you could have a character move is to glide someplace. So if you take the cat now and physically drag him in front of the leftmost green door, the reason I'm doing that again is so that Scratch can figure out those X and Y coordinates for me. So
Okay.
after he says hello, what I want him to do is I don't want him to just go to that door. I want him to kind of look like he's gliding. So now your blocks for the cat should say when the green flag is clicked, first go to that XY coordinate, say hello for 2 seconds, and then glide over to the door. So give that a try and then test it. So now the next thing that we want to have happen is after the cat glides to the door, let's have him say hello with a question mark for 2 seconds, like he's going, what's going on here? So you can type into that little white area where it says say hello. You can highlight that and type your own message, or you could even have it say, is anyone there? So this is how you start building the script into your story, by these says and by these things. Now, when you press the green arrow, the green flag, it sort of starts building that story for you. So, hello?
Yep.
Is anyone there? Okay. Now, after he does that, you could have him test as many doors as you want, but we're only going to have him go to the last door now. So again, following the pattern, first we're going to drag the cat in front of that rightmost door. It's going to let Scratch know the coordinates. Then under the motion blocks, you could have it glide to that zone. And again, just test it out with the green arrow. So a lot of what you're doing with the kids, especially third graders, is just teaching them how to try some commands, hit the green arrow, try some commands, hit the green arrow. And it's probably best to do the same story with all of them the first time.
Yeah.
And then, they can they'll go crazy once they get the basics down.
Now, I have a quick question. The storyline, are you giving the storyline to the kids?
I would say definitely, again, for the first one, you could use that,
Yes, that.
right?
Okay.
So I would give the storyline to the kids like this at the beginning, because you want to tell them, keep checking. So how many characters are we supposed to have? How many do we have so far? What setting are we in? So for we're on the urban street. What's the problem? The cat wants to go door to door. So yeah, keep walking them through. We're building our story a little bit at a time.
Okay.
Now we've got the cat at the right door. We want that wizard to come to his rescue. The problem is, what would happen, and you can try it, if you drag the wizard to the door right in front of the cat, and when his green arrow is clicked, it says go to wherever, think for 2 seconds, and now I want him to glide over to that last door. Without even pressing the green arrow, what do you think might be the problem with doing it that way? And then you could think it in your head and then test the green arrow and see what the problem seems to be. So what is the problem with the wizard as far as the storyline goes when you hit the green arrow?
Okay, they're meeting at the end, aren't
They're
they?
they're meeting at the end, but what might be the problem? And I'm screen sharing still with you guys, right? You can
Yes.
see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
So the problem that I see is that the wizard's kind of reading the cat's mind. He's beating the cat to the door.
Yeah, he's going first.
Right. Where I'd want him to kind of come to the rescue once the cat knocks on that door. So this is where some of those control blocks come in handy. If you're still on the wizard and you go to the control section, you'll see at the top of the list, there's a wait command.
Yes.
And you can drag that in between the think and the glide. And then it's just a matter of fooling around. Do you think it should wait 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 2 seconds? So play around with that until you're happy that the cat gets to knock at the first door, gets to the second door, and then the wizard comes to his rescue. So the wait comes in really handy with the students because anytime they want this to happen and then that to happen, but they don't want it at the same time, they can fool around with that wait command to make the
Yeah.
story pause. Okay. So now the next thing that we want to do in our plot is we want the scene to change. The stage can have commands just the same way that the cat can have commands, or the wizard can have commands. So if you click on the stage, you'll see that it also can have scripts attached.